Hey, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about the sad and shocking story of Leanne Tiernan. We'll dive in and uncover everything that happened in a simple and clear way. Stay with us to learn all the details of this case. Let's get started. It was Sunday, November 26, 2000. The day dawned with a clear blue sky, perfect for an adventure. Leanne, an energetic young woman, woke up with a smile on her face. She carefully tied her hair into a French twist, an elegant style that she loved. After giving her mother a loving kiss, Leanne left the house, eager to meet her best friend, Sarah. The two friends were excited to spend the day in the center of Leeds. Taking the bus and exploring the city was always fun. The air was cool but crisp, and they chatted and laughed along the way, full of anticipation for the shopping that lay ahead. When they arrived in the center, the place was vibrant, with decorated shops and people bustling about, enjoying their Saturday. After a few hours of shopping, loaded with bags and lots of content, Leanne and Sarah decided it was time to head home. They took the bus back to Bramley, a quiet, friendly neighborhood where everyone knew each other. At about 4:50 p.m., the two women got off the bus and walked together to Sarah's house. There, they hugged goodbye and promised to meet again soon. Sarah watched Leanne follow a path known as Hully Gill, a shortcut through the woods that her mother had always warned her to avoid at night. But it was still early, and the daylight provided a welcoming glow. Leanne, confident and calm, walked onto the path, her footsteps light on the dry leaves that covered the ground. The sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky with shades of gold and orange. The walk should have taken only 20 minutes, but when Sarah called Leanne's house at 5:20 p.m., she was surprised to find that Leanne had not yet arrived. Leanne's mother, Sharon, began to beat faster. Desperate, she tried repeatedly to call her daughter's mobile phone, but the line was silent and unanswered. At 7 p.m., with her concern turning to panic, Sharon decided to call the police. She reported that Leanne was missing and asked for urgent help. That same evening, family and friends gathered at the local church to gather torches and begin the search. With torches in hand, they searched the surrounding area, calling out Leanne's name, but the woods seemed to swallow their voices. The darkness and loneliness made the search even more harrowing. West Yorkshire Police, led by Detective Constable Chris Gregg, began an intensive search operation. The work was challenging due to the complicated terrain. There were more than 700 houses, dense woodland, canals and wells dotted around the area. Helicopters hovered overhead, while officers and search dogs scrutinized every corner and shadow. To ensure they didn't miss a single clue, even the rubbish collection was temporarily suspended. After a week of tireless searching, there was still no sign of Leanne. Determined to find answers, investigators turned to Leanne's sister Michelle and her friend Sarah for help. Michelle, with courage and sadness, dressed in the same clothes Leanne had been wearing on the day she disappeared and walked the same route. They hoped that a witness might have noticed something. As the news began to spread, several people claimed to have seen a man with a black and tan dog in the Hully Gill area, approximately an hour before Leanne disappeared. A composite sketch of the man was created and circulated. He was described as tall, stocky, with scars on his face, wearing a black woolly hat, a waterproof jacket and dirty jeans. Despite numerous tips received, no one was identified. As the investigation wound down and hopes dwindled, Leanne's family did their best to keep the story alive. Sean Clark, a father of 3 from Leeds, offered a £10,000 reward for any information leading to Leanne's safe return. The Iceland Food supermarket helped by putting Leanne's picture on its milk cartons. Leaflets and billboards with Leanne's picture and the question, "Have you seen her?" were placed throughout the city. Today, we'll explore this moving story. Bramley, the neighborhood where Leanne lived, is a quiet and friendly place in West Leeds, England. With its old buildings and 20th-century homes, the area is crossed by a charming river and boasts the beautiful Bramley Fall Park. Roads and footpaths connect Bramley to Bradford, just 4 miles from Leeds city centre, making it an ideal place to raise a family. LEANNE TIERNAN was born in Bramley, a charming neighborhood in West Leeds, on September 27, 1984. She was the daughter of Michael Tiernan and Sharon Hawad. Although her parents separated when LEANNE was still young, she maintained a loving relationship with her father, who continued to be an important part of her life. LEANNE and her older sister Michelle lived with their mother in Leeds, but her father always made an effort to be present and supportive of his daughters. LEANNE was a vibrant and energetic teenager. She loved spending time with her grandparents, with whom she shared special moments every Sunday morning. The routine was always the same. After a leisurely breakfast, the trio would walk to the local church. These outings were precious moments for LEANNE, who felt safe and loved in the company of her grandparents. Her passion for chocolate was so great that her uncle affectionately called her chocolate chip niece, a nickname that reflected her love of sweets and her affectionate nature. At school, LEANNE was known for her enthusiasm and dedication. She attended West Leeds High School and was focused on achieving her high school diploma, an important goal for her. On November 26, 2000, a cold but sunny Sunday, LEANNE was particularly excited. She had plans for a day of shopping with her best friend, Sarah. The two had planned to buy early presents for Christmas, and the day promised to be full of fun. After a quiet morning at church with her grandmother, LEANNE returned home to get ready for the outing. She dressed in a black and white striped sweater, black pants, ankle boots, and a blue jacket, a perfect combination to face the cold of the day. She was looking forward to spending a pleasant afternoon with Sarah, and her enthusiasm was evident. The afternoon of shopping was exactly as LEANNE had imagined, fun and excitement. They explored the shops, laughed a lot and carefully selected gifts. As the day began to fade, the two friends caught the bus back to Bramley, where they lived. It was around 4:50 p.m. when they got off the bus and walked to Sarah's house. After a warm goodbye hug, LEANNE decided to follow the shortcut known as Hully Gill, a path that led through a wooded area. Even though LEANNE's mother, Sharon, had always warned against this route at night, LEANNE felt safe because it was still daylight. With the sound of dry leaves crunching under her feet and the last rays of sunlight illuminating her path, LEANNE continued confidently. However, what was supposed to be a 20-minute walk turned into agonizing agony for her family. When Sarah tried to call LEANNE at home at 5:20 p.m. and found she had not yet arrived, concern began to set in. Sharon tried repeatedly to contact LEANNE on her mobile phone, but to no avail. The fear and anguish grew as night fell. At 7 p.m., Sharon, in despair, called the police to report her daughter missing. That evening, the family went to the church to get torches and begin a search of the area. With their hearts in their throats, they shouted LEANNE's name in the hope that she would hear and respond, but the forest seemed to swallow their voices. The search for the young girl was immense and complex. West Yorkshire Police, led by Detective Constable Chris Gregg, were faced with the challenge of searching more than 2,000 houses and areas along the possible route that LEANNE had taken. Helicopters, search dogs and rubbish collection were used to preserve any evidence. The investigation became a race against time, with the hope of finding LEANNE alive. As time passed, the grief and uncertainty grew more intense for LEANNE's family. They continued to make desperate appeals to the community, with local Father Sean Clark offering a £10,000 reward for any information leading to LEANNE's safe return. LEANNE's picture was plastered on milk cartons and leaflets plastered across the town, while billboards asking, "Have you seen her?" became a fixture on the cityscape. However, on August 20, 2001, almost 9 months after LEANNE's disappearance, a horrific and shocking discovery was made. Mark Bisson, while walking his dogs in Lindley Woods, an area of dense woodland close to the North Yorkshire border, came across something disturbing. What initially appeared to be a pile of rubbish was in fact a floral duvet. Upon untying it, Mark discovered that it was wrapped in garbage bags, revealing a body. Police arrived quickly on the scene and, upon unfolding the duvet in garbage bags, discovered LEANNE's body, fully clothed and with her hands tied with plastic cable ties. The scene was devastating, and the police used fingerprints to determine that it was indeed LEANNE TIERNAN. To be sure, they performed an examination of the body, called an autopsy, and discovered that LEANNE had been strangled with a plastic cable tying. Unfortunately, the search for LEANNE, who was missing, ended sadly. The police believed that the person responsible for the crime lived in the same area as her. LEANNE's body was found about 25 kilometers from where she was last seen. In addition, the yellow cable ties used to bind LEANNE's hands came from the Royal Mail, the British Postal Service, or the Parcel Force Company. These items are normally used to secure packages during transport, and the discovery of them at the crime scene provided a crucial clue to the investigation. The green bin bags that LEANNE was found in were from the supermarket chain Morrison's, a well-known chain of stores with branches throughout the region. This detail helped the police to trace the origin of the materials used by the criminal. The investigation deepened with the collection of DNA samples. Police carried out a meticulous search, taking DNA samples from family, friends, and even people with criminal records in the area. They hoped to find a match that could lead to the identity of the killer. The search was extended to the dense woodland area where LEANNE's body was found, covering more than 20,000 square meters, a considerable area that included both dense vegetation and difficult terrain. The grief and sadness became even more palpable on September 28, which would have been LEANNE's 17th birthday. Instead of a celebration, family and friends gathered at Sanford Methodist Church in Bramley, Leeds, for the funeral service. It was the same church where LEANNE had been baptized as a baby, a place steeped in memories and meaning for the family. The room was filled with mourners, all trying to come to terms with the loss of a young woman who had been so full of life. Many wore colorful clothing, a tribute to LEANNE's vibrant and upbeat personality. The emotion was palpable during the service. LEANNE's white casket was carried by loved ones, and a floral tribute bearing the words, "Night Night Baby," was placed on it. Guns N' Roses' "November Rain" played, a deeply meaningful choice for the occasion, reflecting both sadness and hope. The congregation sang hymns that LEANNE loved, such as, "Give Me Oil in My Lamp" and "Shall Go Out with Joy," bringing a sense of community and celebration of LEANNE's life, even in the midst of their grief. Among those present was Detective Constable Chris Craig, who had led the search for LEANNE since her disappearance. He was determined to find the person responsible and bring justice to LEANNE and her family. The detective attended the service with a heavy heart, but also with a renewed determination to solve the case. The investigation faced a significant challenge: how did LEANNE's body get to the location where it was found? The area had been thoroughly searched beforehand, and it seemed impossible for the body to have been there undetected. Furthermore, LEANNE's body had not. The body showed normal signs of decomposition, and her hair was still tied back in a ponytail with the same elastic band and hair tie, just as it had been on the day she disappeared. The coroner determined that LEANNE had been killed on the same day as the abduction, and that her body had been kept in a freezer for months afterwards. This meant that the killer had been careful to hide the body, trying to prevent decomposition and making identification more difficult. The body was eventually placed in a landfill, wrapped in a duvet, in the hope that it would be disposed of without being found. However, the killer made a crucial mistake: the body was hidden in a way that protected the DNA from outside contamination, but this also meant that the investigation faced an additional obstacle. DNA analysis failed to turn up any conclusive clues, dashing hopes of a quick solution. As part of the investigation, police examined items found with LEANNE and found dog hair on her clothing. They believed that they could use this hair to create a DNA profile of the animal and eventually identify the perpetrator. The hairs were sent to a university in Texas, which had advanced technology for developing DNA profiles of pedigree pets. This was the first time a DNA profile had been obtained from a dog in a British case, marking a significant advance in forensic science. However, the profile obtained was partial, and as there was no dog to compare it to, the result was shelved. Police found a crucial clue in LEANNE's case. Among the items left at the scene was a knitted scarf tied around her neck. This scarf had a few strands of human hair in the knot, which looked promising. Scientists carried out DNA tests on the strands and were able to create a profile from the small amounts of genetic material found. This gave new hope to the investigation. The next important clue was a dog collar that had been wrapped around the black bin liner where Leanne's body was found. The collar was made by Armitage Leather Products, a company based in Nottingham. Police thought that if they could find out who had bought the collar, they might be able to identify the criminal. They contacted the factory, which said its products were sold to 220 different wholesalers across Britain. The investigators began a long and arduous task, calling each of these wholesalers. They were looking for any registered sales for the Leeds area. After many attempts and multiple calls, they finally got it right on the 102nd try. A shop called Pet Pajamas, based in Liverpool, had sold 3 leather dog collars in Leeds from Armitage. The police were given the details of the customers who had bought these items and began to investigate each of them. One of the customers was a man called John Taylor, who lived in Bramley, an area close to where Leanne was last seen. The police discovered that John Taylor's name had come up in previous accounts. Several people had reported seeing Taylor with his dog in the same woods where Leanne's body was found. When the police interviewed him, Taylor claimed that his dog had died long before Leanne's murder. He was accused of killing the dog to destroy possible evidence. John Taylor seemed like an ordinary person at first glance. He was 45 years old and worked as a delivery driver for the Parcel Force, a division of the British Post Office. His only previous criminal record was for stealing a suit when he was just 15. Taylor had married a woman called Janet and they had 2 children, but they divorced in 1990. After the divorce, Taylor lived alone in a house with a garden in Coot Drive, Bramley. However, behind his normal appearance, Taylor had a disturbing side. He was known for torturing animals. His neighbors considered him a regular man, but few knew that he mistreated rabbits and even stabbed foxes. Soon after moving into his new home, Taylor began breeding dogs and ferrets in large numbers. Janet, his ex-wife, could no longer stand the overpowering smell of the animals and the impact it had on the house, especially when he brought in 2 large owls, fed them chicks, and stored them in one of the property's large freezers. This was enough for Janet to file for divorce. After his divorce, Taylor traveled extensively around the country seeking female companionship and would often travel around the country to have intimate relationships, and through phone records, police began tracking down the women he had met. Most of them described him as harmless, but some reported that they had called the police to report him for suspicious behavior, especially after the details of Leanne's murder were released. Among these women, 2 in particular remembered Taylor in disturbing detail. They described a man who was violent and had very frightening fetishes. One of John Taylor's ex-girlfriends revealed something crucial to the investigation. She explained that she had ended her relationship with him because of a very unusual fetish. Taylor had an obsession with tying people up and controlling them in cruel ways. She told investigators that he would often use zip ties to bind her hands and then place scarves over her face, creating a situation of total submission. When asked how he tied her up, she described how Taylor kept a pack of zip ties on hand at all times, kept in a drawer next to his bed. He would use 1 zip ties on each of her wrists and then bind her hands behind her back with an extra zip ties, creating a situation that seemed eerily similar to how Leanne's body was found. This technique of tying people up was a detail that had never been made public, and now it seemed to connect with Leanne's case in an alarming way. Based on this new lead, the police decided to take action. After nearly 10 months since Leanne's disappearance, Taylor was finally arrested and taken in for questioning. The police obtained a warrant to collect DNA samples from Taylor and conduct a thorough search of his home. To ensure that no one had access to the premises during the investigation, police teams erected 6-foot-high wooden screens around the property, creating a secure perimeter. In Taylor's backyard, investigators began a thorough search. They found items that seemed out of place, including an onion, a plum tree, and a cottonwood tree. Investigators also found a crucial clue, traces of a specific pollen on Leanne's hair, skin, and nasal passages. This pollen indicated that she had been in an environment with these plants before she was killed. When they began digging in Taylor's garden, they made some shocking discoveries. The first was a mass grave containing the remains of 28 ferrets and the skeletons of 4 dogs. One of these dogs was a terrier, and its fur was remarkably similar to that found on Leanne's body. This discovery confirmed that Taylor had a long history of animal cruelty. In Taylor's home, police found something disturbing. The carpet had been removed, but upon closer inspection of the floor, they discovered tiny pink fibers that were stuck to nails in the floorboards. These fibers were identical to those found on Leanne's body. In addition, Leanne's blood was found in several areas of the kitchen floor, providing further crucial evidence in the case. The string used to tie the green bin liners that wrapped Leanne's body was traced back to a factory in Devon. The company confirmed that it had produced a special batch of the string for making rabbit nets. The same type of string was found at Taylor's home, directly linking the material to the crime. Investigators also discovered a surprising amount of yellow zip ties at Taylor's property. These were manufactured by an Italian company for the Royal Mail, the British Postal Service. As Taylor worked for the Parcel Force Division of the Royal Mail, he had easy access to these zip ties. They also found a green bin liner, identical to the one used to wrap Leanne's body, on a shelf in Taylor's kitchen, further strengthening the link between him and the crime. When police confronted Taylor with this evidence, he initially denied any involvement with Leanne. However, when presented with the full body of evidence, Taylor confessed to kidnapping Leanne but claimed that her death was an accident. He said that after he took Leanne into the house, there was a struggle and she fell, hitting her head and dying instantly. But police found no evidence of a fall, and Taylor was unable to explain why Leanne was strangled or why her hands were tied. Investigators were finally able to piece together what had happened that horrific night. Leanne was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time while walking alone on a quiet path. Taylor grabbed her from behind. Although there were no eyewitnesses, it was later reported that someone had heard a muffled scream. Taylor put his hand over Leanne's mouth, blindfolded her with a scarf, wrapped her in a coat, and took her to his home, which was about 22 minutes away. Inside the house, he tied her hands behind her back and placed her on an old church pew in the kitchen. Taylor then strangled Leanne using a tie and a wool scarf. After the murder, he kept her body in the kitchen freezer for months. Shortly before the body was found, Taylor's friends noticed that an upright freezer had suddenly disappeared. Police concluded that Taylor had decided to dispose of the body, leading to a decision that ultimately resulted in his arrest. On February 15, 2002, 46-year-old John Taylor was found guilty of Leanne's murder and kidnapping. He was given 2 life sentences and will have to serve 20 years before he is eligible for parole. The meticulous way in which he concealed and disposed of Leanne's body indicated a level of calculation and premeditation. Investigators believe that Leanne's murder was not Taylor's first crime. When Taylor's DNA was entered into the database, 2 previous assaults were linked to him. The first occurred on October 18, 1988, when Taylor, wearing a mask and carrying a knife, attacked a 32-year-old woman as she walked to pick up her children from school. The second attack occurred on March 1, 1990, when Taylor, also wearing a mask and armed with a knife, broke into the home of a 21-year-old mother in Bramley. He dragged her into the bedroom, assaulted her, and kept her gagged and blindfolded, while her 18-month-old daughter cried in the next room. Taylor was given 2 additional warrants. Over the next few years, police reviewed cold cases of similar crimes across the country, hoping to find more victims and better understand the extent of Taylor's crimes. The investigation revealed that Taylor had a pattern of violent and predatory behavior, and his ability to hide and manipulate evidence showed an alarming disregard for human life and the rights of others. John Taylor's story is one of the darkest and most disturbing. What began as an isolated case of cruelty turned into a serial nightmare after Taylor revealed that. Between 1977 and 1996, he committed a series of terrifying crimes that exposed his true monstrous nature. In one of the most horrific cases, he threatened a pregnant woman with a knife, forcing her to endure unspeakable torment. Just before Christmas 1977, he attacked a waitress, showing just how dangerous and predatory he really was. After years of terror, Taylor was finally arrested and confessed to his crimes. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, meaning he will never see the outside world again. He is currently being held at Wakefield Maximum Security Prison, an institution known as the Monster Mansion, due to the many notorious criminals who have served their sentences there. This prison houses some of the most feared and dangerous criminals in England. But Taylor's story doesn't end there. Following his arrest, new evidence emerged linking him to nearly 10 other murder cases. Many of these cases, which had been closed due to lack of evidence, were reopened as details about Taylor began to emerge. For example, in 1992, the body of 33-year-old Yvonne Fitt was found in a shallow grave just 100 yards from where Leanne's body was discovered. In addition, 13-year-old Linda Heimer went missing from an area near Taylor's home in Bramley, and her body was found in a canal 5 months later. Deborah Woods was found burning at Leeds train station, wrapped in bin bags and bedding after being kept in a freezer. Rebecca Hall, a prostitute, was found dead in Bradford. And many more similar cases are being investigated. Leanne's mother Sharon's grief is immeasurable. Even after everything that happened, Sharon continues to visit her daughter's grave, keeping Leanne's memory alive. She carries with her the sadness of not being able to see Leanne grow up, finish her studies, become an adult and have children of her own. However, Sharon also carries a deep pride in having been Leanne's mother, even if only for a short time. Constantly visiting the grave is a way of keeping her daughter's memory alive and fighting for the justice that Leanne deserves. This episode reveals the unspeakable cruelty of one man and the resilience of those who fight for justice. If you have any questions or would like to share your thoughts on Leanne Tiernan's story, leave a comment below. We love hearing from you. Glowing star. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more intriguing content like this and give the video a like. This helps YouTube recommend more videos like this to you. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.